What did Buzz Aldrin really report inside Apollo 11? Why would a bright light near the moon be compared to a laser? Can an official file be mysterious without proving aliens? In May 2026, a Pentagon declassification connected to the Pursue UFO files pushed one Apollo 11 detail back into public view. Not a rumour from the internet, but a set of crew observations from 1969, recorded during the most famous voyage in human history. The safe version of the story is simple. Apollo 11 went to the moon, landed, returned, and became a national myth. But inside the cabin, the astronauts were also trying to interpret strange lights in a place where every reflection, particle, and instrument could become a question. Buzz Aldrin reported little flashes inside the cabin. That phrase sounds small, but context makes it powerful. In deep space, a flash inside a spacecraft could be a reflection, a particle impact, an eye effect, or something the crew could not immediately classify. The files also describe a sizable object near the moon. The important word is not alien. The important word is object. The crew had to judge distance without ordinary reference points, while moving through a black sky full of hardware, glare, and uncertainty. A third detail is stranger, a fairly bright light source that the crew thought could be a laser. That does not prove a weapon, a signal, or visitors. It proves something more subtle. Trained pilots saw brightness that did not fit easily into the moment. This is where the before us question begins. What happens when the most documented journey in modern history still contains observations that resist a clean caption? The mystery is not outside the official record. It is inside the record's unfinished edges. The Apollo 11 crew were not casual witnesses. They were test pilots, engineers, and mission specialists operating under extreme pressure. That makes their words valuable, but it also means we must treat every sentence with discipline instead of turning it into a headline trap. Little flashes inside the cabin can have many explanations. Spacecraft windows, metal surfaces, cosmic rays, ice particles, and instrument lights all belong in the first circle of possibilities. A serious film starts there, because mystery gets stronger when the obvious is checked first. The sizable object near the moon is harder for viewers to imagine, because lunar distance breaks instinct. Without trees, roads, clouds, or buildings, size and range become slippery. A nearby piece of mission hardware can feel enormous. A far object can feel close. Then there is the bright source, the one compared to a laser. In 1969, laser ranging to the moon was a real scientific ambition, and Apollo 11 carried retroreflectors for experiments after landing. But a crew perception during flight is not the same as a confirmed external beam. That distinction matters. Official files can record uncertainty without solving it. They can preserve what was said, what was seen, and what was suspected, while still leaving the final category open. Unidentified is not imaginary. It is also not automatically extraterrestrial. The Pursue declassification matters because it changes the audience's relationship with the story. The question is no longer whether people online invented Apollo-like stories. The question becomes, why did these observations sit quietly in files while the public remembered only the flag and the footprint? Apollo 11 is usually told as a triumph. That is true, but triumph stories simplify the room. Inside the command module, there was a more human scene. Men watching lights, checking instruments, comparing impressions, and deciding what was worth reporting. Aldrin's little flashes remind us that space was not empty to the people inside it. It was active, bright, and sometimes confusing. The crew were not floating through a clean animation. They were inside a machine surrounded by invisible radiation, debris, and reflected sunlight. The sizable object near the moon asks a different question. How much did Apollo crews see that never entered the popular version? Not because someone hid aliens, but because mission histories choose clean arcs. Launch, landing, return. Everything else becomes a footnote. The possible laser-like light is the cinematic center, a bright point in the darkness, noticed by people who knew aircraft, optics, and navigation. The correct response is not to shout confirmation. It is to slow down and ask what data survived. Were there transcripts, timings, instrument logs, other crew comments, later technical explanations? The more specific the questions become, the less room there is for cheap speculation. This is how an official file UFO story becomes a documentary instead of a rumour. By May 2026, the public had become used to official UAP language. Cautious, narrow, often frustrating. Apollo 11 shows why that language matters. It protects the difference between an observation, an interpretation, and a conclusion. The old space age was built on certainty, rockets, calculations, trajectories. But the people inside those trajectories still met ambiguity. That is the human part of the record. Even at the moon, even with NASA watching, the sky could still surprise them. So the real story is not aliens on the way to Apollo 11. The real story is official memory. A cabin flash, a sizable object, and a laser-like light survived long enough to be read again, forcing us to admit that history can be famous and still incomplete.